Hey there, it's Monkey. I want to show you most, if not all, of the buildings with a comfort of 10 or higher spread throughout the area we currently have access to in Enshrouded. I think this may be valuable for a couple reasons. Let's say maybe you want to spend more time exploring, crafting, fighting, etc., and less time building, or maybe no time building because you just don't enjoy it. Or maybe you like building and you want to embellish places that already start with a good comfort score. Either way, I've got a lot of locations to show you. I hope you'll like this video in more ways than one. Let's get to it. We're going to cover locations starting in Springlands. That's kind of the starting area. And then we're going to work our way clockwise around the map. Mostly. We'll talk about Low Meadows at the end. We're here in our sort of starter base. Basically because we want to set, what our default comfort level is. We've just come out of the Cinder Vault and you have a quest to go and set up your base down at the foot of that hill right there. And once you've got your workbench up, you can usually put together about 6 comfort worth of, items from the surrounding area. Now, once you've added your flame altar in, like we have, set up here, you're going to get another 5 comfort from that flame altar. But the default, if this was just a location without the flame altar, the default comfort would be a 6. All of the locations that we're going to look at out in the game start with a default of 10, not including the altar. So you're getting at least a bump of 4 comfort, and most of the locations have a 15 or higher, so more than double what you can kind of scrape together from the surrounding area. The first location we're going to look at is just west of the Ancient Spire for the Springlands fast travel, and I wanted to kind of cover this physically, if you will, just with the basic glider, because I wanted to make sure that people who are kind of just starting out in Enshrouded know that this is relatively easily accessible base. It's too far to get with a default glider. Even if you have a lot of endurance, you might not have enough to get all the way to that building over there that's right above my head. That's where we're headed. But you could simply, glide down to this tower here, take a quick stop, get your endurance back up, and same thing, just, glide down to this cliff here. These are easily reachable. I'm using the base glider right now, just to give you a sense that this is totally, easily doable. And then you can either hit the trees down there on the right or the top of this building right down here, which is what I'm aiming for. Now, when you get down here, there's going to be a lot of wolves and stuff like that, but that's not really what we're here for. We're here for the comfort. And, I just wanted to explain, again, just to kind of get this out of the way early in this recording, that when you take your flame altar and you want to put it down, if you look down here, you'll see there's this outline, this build outline. I want to point that out because there are some locations, like this one in particular, where you can see, over in this direction over here, there's a lot of mushrooms, a couple tomatoes and stuff like that. If you're building outline where you can change things around your flame altar, if it overlaps those mushrooms, once you've harvested them, they won't respawn. They're basically just like animals. Every half an hour, everything outside of your base line will respawn or reset to the way the world was originally. So if you make sure that your flame altar is, for example, this far away from those mushrooms and tomatoes, that line is not overlapping them anymore, they will respawn every half an hour. So that's a really good source, particularly if you want a lot of mushrooms, a really good source of mushrooms without you needing to rescue the farmer, build the seed bed, and go through all of that work to do it. Same applies for the corn that's out in that field out there. There's a whole bunch of corn out there. So just keep those, that basic understanding in mind. Now, when you do set down your flame altar, you're gonna have to clear out, like I said, all the wolves and any rats and stuff like that might be inside there. But for this location, again, you knock down these benches or whatever that's here, you'd be able to put the flame altar right in that location, wouldn't overlap the mushrooms. You'd have, in this spot in particular, an 11 comfort plus the 5 for your flame altar. Just keep that in mind. Whenever I talk about comfort from now on, it's going to be the default comfort level, not including this 5 from the flame altar. The next location I'm going to talk about is going to be just actually east of this Harvest Homestead, and it'll be a spot just north of Woodgard. It's basically a broken down inn. There's, like I said, there's tomatoes and mushrooms right outside. Inside, this one's going to have a comfort of 10. Up above, you're going to find chamomile and tomato, also in a garden. Again, these would be things that could respawn for you. And then really close, you're going to have some flint, like right on the hill outside. And then also, likewise, close by, you're going to have some flint along the hills that are going to lead down into the salt mine. A lot of resources nearby. That's why this is kind of a nice area to have for, building up your stockpile and whatnot. The next location we're going to look at is Peaceful Acres. It's to the south of these two locations. They do share a lot of common area, a lot of, access to, this sort of quest area in the map. Peaceful Acres has a 12 comfort. That's going to be the highest you're going to find in Springlands. There's one other location that also has a 12. This place has corn, mushrooms, flint as well. It also has a salt mine really close by in the Shroud. There's going to be wolves. There's wolves everywhere pretty much in this area. But there's a salt mine in the Shroud that's like really close by, easily accessible. And it kind of makes this a good location, particularly for getting those materials up. It's also pretty easily accessible from your home base. Like, you can easily traverse across the land to get over to Peaceful Acres without necessarily having to jump from the tower. Or you could come from the north from Woodgard and work your way down to it. But any of these three locations are pretty solid. The last location we're going to look at in the Springlands area is going to be north of the Ancient Spire for Springlands. Pretty far north. It's up here, just one of the buildings in the Westcott town. Now, we're going to jump from the tower again, and this is with a better than the default glider. If you had the default glider, you'd be landing pretty much about down below where I am right now. So you'd have to work your way pretty far north, but it's not really that far. You're going to pass through this one little small sort of inn that doesn't really have a great comfort because the scavengers have messed it up. There's an elixir well nearby. There's the place where you're going to rescue the farmer from nearby. And then this building right here that we're landing on, it's going to come in with a comfort level of 12. You're going to have a flint mine that's going to be just to the north, like a dedicated mine. There's, some shroud nodes and stuff like that, but there's no salt in them or whatever. And, if there is an elixir well, like, as I mentioned. If you want to pop down to Fenrig's farm, you can get more veggies there. This area itself, like really close by, only has like chamomile, scavengers, which are good for, metal scraps and stuff, and wolves. And being that there's a few buildings around, there's a good amount of like breakable items that you can, smash for, resources and whatnot. Now, moving north into the Revelwood area, this is kind of like on the border between Revelwood and Springlands, is going to be a place called Willow Crush. That's actually just a little bit northeast of Westcott. Revelwood you could get at if you had a, top-notch glider and some good endurance, but most likely you're either going to be crossing the bridge from the north, you can see that on the right there, or you're going to be coming up from the south to get to the town. So this building here is going to have a 17 comfort. That's the best that you can get in Willow Crush. I figure if you're going to occupy a base in here, you might as well go for the 17. There is a 12 and a 13. The building next door is a 13. The building next to that is a 12. So you could take any of those three buildings. You're going to have, for resources, you're going to have clay. There's copper that's also nearby, but you're going to have to do some upward mining to kind of get at the copper. It's up, up in the hills above here. There's also a couple forest beats around, and obviously lots of scavengers and their hounds, so the typical mats you can get off of them, and a good number of chests in some of these buildings that are around here. So obviously you could do a lot of upgrading on these buildings if you're sort of a builder who wanted to occupy a space with lots of, things. But, if you just wanted that juicy 17 comfort, this is a good location for it. The next location is going to be just west of the Revelwood Ancient Spire. Now, It's not a location that's marked on the map, but I've got a base there actually. So if you just kind of make a note of where it's at, it's on the road between sort of the cave passage and the Mark of Samoth. You can find it if you tend to stick to the roads, particularly like northwest of Diadwin. Now you can see it a little bit if you look like just above my helmet through the trees there. That's the building right there that we're going to get to. You actually can do a pretty good job of getting to it just from the default glider. Well, I might make a fool of myself here, but you jump down to this cliff here, and then if you're going to run on west, you can get to it that way. So you take this crossroads right here, up into the hills, and that would get you to it. Now here's the inside of the inn. I already have my flame altar down, so the comfort level you're seeing of 25, you got to take 5 off of that to get to the base of 20, but 20 comfort is pretty amazing. The inside of the inn is really nice too. All of this stuff that's here was just already built in. So, you know, it's a fantastic site to just already have a really sweet looking base to begin with lots of rooms, lots of, places you can, put down your crafters and whatnot. Like I said, it's not that far from the ancient spire for Revelwood. You've got a big, huge copper mine off to the west. That's the Mark of Samoth. There's clay that's going to be nearby around the back. You can see there's a large node on the hill, like right up behind the inn. There's going to be some, beets and strawberries that you can find as well. So you can, either pick those up occasionally when they respawn, to throw them in your seed starter. They're probably going to be outside the build area of your base, even if you expand it a couple times. So overall, a great location. I like the Blue Goblet Inn. Moving on north from the Blue Goblet, we have Glenwood's End. Now, Glenwood's End is a large castle town. There's going to be a building just outside on the right hand that is going to have a comfort of 10. And that's pretty good, although, we did just pass that 20 comfort Blue Goblet Inn, so, you've got that. But if you go up inside the town, just inside the walls, there's going to be another inn that's going to have a comfort of anywhere from 17 to 21. That's this Green Goblet Inn right here that I'm inside now. You're going to have to fight some of the mobs to clean them out before you can put down your altar. That makes this a little bit of a rougher location than the Blue Goblet Inn that was back down the road. But this location has a lot of things going for it in terms of, the resources that are nearby. You've got a flame shrine for a few sparks occasionally. You're going to have strawberries, clay, flint, and a lot of fighting. There's a lot of chests to be had inside Glenwood's End. There's also a matron who will, you can farm her for, whatever drop she has and the trophy, obviously. Now, the drawback I would say that Glenwood's End has is that it's kind of tucked out of the way. And also, obviously, if you don't want a lot of fighting, then maybe it's not for you. But if you want a total sort of, rehab town to work with, then Glenwood's End is going to be it, because, it's got a lot of, like I said, castle town to it. From there, we're going to head southeast of the Revelwood Ancient Spire down to Thornhold. Thornhold is another inn. It's got a base comfort of 22, so it should come as no surprise. Inns tend to have really good comfort levels. It's going to be full of scavengers to begin with, but once you clear those out and you clear out the basement for the location, you can put down your flame altar. As you can see here, it's a 27 with the flame altar, so again, that base level is a 22, which is almost the highest for the Revelwood area. Resource-wise, this base has copper, like pretty much on site. there's a lot of materials you could break down if you wanted to, or a lot of scavengers you could farm if you wanted to, keep your base from being fully expanded. Once you fully expand the boundaries of your base, you can block off all of the scavenger spawns, so you don't have to deal with them at all. Right out the backside, there is a clay mine that, as long as you don't fully expand the footprint of your base, you will be able to farm the clay from it indefinitely. Now, my base is fully expanded. I didn't need the clay anymore at the point in the playthrough that I'm in, so it doesn't matter to me. But as long as you don't go to max level base size, or as long as you maybe move your flame altar over a little bit, you might be able to keep the clay sort of outside your base's footprint. But overall, I like Thornhold. It wound up being the main base for the first big playthrough that I did. However, if you want something a little less fighty, if you want something where you don't have to necessarily work so hard to clear it out, you're actually going to want to maybe look just northeast of Thornhold to what I would say is probably the best base location in Revelwood. This location is going to be another inn. It's got lots of resources nearby. There's some, clay that's going to be right on site. Popping inside the building, you can see it's sort of got that standard inn layout, minus the basement though. But it's got a 23 comfort. You may need to clear out the spiders that are in the barn. There's 3 spiders in the barn. But there's really not a lot of enemies in the area, so it's a much more chill location. You just have the 2 buildings, so you don't have a lot of chests to loot, but you can see that there's some copper right there. Really close by, in addition to all this wildlife boards and stuff like that, there is a fissure in the ground, an enshrouded fissure, but this location has very little in the way of enemies. In fact, there's no default mobs built into this area during the day, and it also happens to be loaded with amber. And you can just sort of, pop down inside, get down to where the amber is. It's really easy to get down to it, mine out a whole bunch of it, and poke your head out when if your timer runs low, or if your axe breaks. It's really really easy to just get your head out of the shroud and either fast travel back to home, or even just run back to home. It's such a close location. And while we're talking about resources, here's the barn. There's the shroud mine for the amber. If you run a little bit to the south of there, you're going to find this tower, and at the base of the tower, there's just a bunch of copper. So you can mine out all of that copper. That gives you clay, amber, and copper, and that's in addition to, obviously, the wildlife you're going to find in this area, boar and whatnot. But it's a really good, like I said, a really good peaceful location as far as this goes. Like Thornhold, it's really central to the map as far as the current playable area, really close to the Pillars of Creation, which is the next level of zone, really close to Pikemead's Reach. Just a good location overall, and it will probably be the main base that I use for my next playthrough. Now, once you've defeated the Fell Wisp Wyvern and upgraded the strength of your flame again, you're going to be able to get through into the Pillars of Creation, and that will move us into the Nomad Highlands. Now, Noman's Highland kind of stretches all the way from the north end of what we have access to. That's where the Ancient Spire actually is, but the Highlands actually goes all the way down pretty much to where Surat's Rest is. You can only access Surat's Rest through the Nomad Highlands, but we're going to start back up in the north by the Ancient Spire for the Highlands. And to the west of it is going to be a location called Rattlebleak. Rattlebleak is a small compound. There's only a handful of buildings in it, but it's got a built-in well. You've got peppers and sage already growing in containers on site. You can just, keep your base profile from blocking them respawning. And it comes with a 21 comfort. So you can see I've got a 26 there, including my flame altar. Close by, also, you can see fossil bones and the Ancient Spire right there. So you can get the fossilized bones. Copper and tin are close by as well. And so it's got a lot going for it. Now, it is relatively close to the Ancient Spire, so as a fast travel point, not very necessary. but it does kind of get you a good location, and it might be a base that you want to come back to again and again, just because it's got a nice sort of vibe to it, and not a lot of creatures to have to clear out or fend off in that area. Now, the only other location in the Nomad Highlands that has a comfort higher than 10 is in Surat's Rest. There's actually a few locations in Surat's Rest that have a 10 or higher, but the best one really is going to be the inn that is like kind of at the center of town. This is a big scavenger camp, so you're going to have to end up clearing out a lot of scavengers and stuff like that. Now, just south of the inn, you're going to find like a 10 comfort building, and down south, down at the end of the road there, you're going to find a 14, but 19 is going to be the best you can do inside Surat. There are a lot of buildings in Surat, so there's going to be a lot of breakables for resources. Don't ever discount that when you're thinking about locations. A lot of breakables, a lot of scavengers to fight, so a lot of loot that you can get off of them, which for the ranged ones includes arrows. If you're a ranger, that might be a nice thing to get. Beyond copper, there's no clay or anything like that, at least that I could find. But generally speaking, I think it's an interesting location overall. Now, aside from Surat's Rest in the south and Rattlebleak in the north, there's no other locations in the Nomad Highlands itself that has a 10 or higher comfort. There is a town, though, right on the border between what I would say the Nomad Highlands and the Kindle Waste, just inside of the Kindle Waste, called Brittlebush. We're going to head there now because that has some of the best comfort levels in the game and a lot of buildings to choose from as far as that goes. In Brittlebush, you're going to find buildings that have a comfort of anywhere from 24 up to 33. I'm actually standing on top of the Faraway Freight Tavern right now. That's got the 33 comfort baked into it. If you pop over here where the respawn orb is, you're going to find that there's going to be a 32 to the south of it, so that's pretty dang close to 33, and a 24 to the north of it. But really, you've either got this 32 comfort building here, or you have the Faraway Freight Tavern that's got a 33 in it. There's a lot of other great buildings you can occupy in Brittlebush if you're not looking really to maximize comfort. And also, there's going to be a lot of chests around, gold chests even, things you can break, scavengers to fight, all that, all that manner of stuff. And this is really just the main part of Brittlebush. There's also a southeast Brittlebush where you're going to find comforts of between 18 and 24. I mean, those are okay. They're not really going to compete with the Faraway Freight Tavern. However, in northeast Brittlebush, you're going to find comfort levels of up to 32. So again, pretty close. You kind of have your pick of buildings. Being that these places have a comfort of around 30 or so, you know that they already have good built-in tables and chairs and all that manner of things. But it's a great location. It's gonna offer you lots of fighting, lots of loot, lots of chests. The mineable resources that are nearby, there's going to be some lapis lazuli in the area, and also sulfur that you can easily get to. However, you're going to be traveling a little bit more to get to any of those mineable resources, just because Brittlebush itself is a fairly large town. There's no mines that I could find built into the town itself. Jumping up to the ancient spire for the Kindle Waste, there is a small building located northeast of it. Now, this building, I'll glide down to it while I talk about it. It only has a 14 comfort to it, so it's not as amazing as a lot of the other locations are in the Kindle Waste itself. But maybe you'll like it for, what's around. There is, sulfur right there in the area. Just drop down on there. Now, this is a small location. I decided to include it because it does fit the criteria of having at least a comfort of 10. I certainly wouldn't pick it, even though it doesn't have a lot of fighting. There's a couple scavengers across the way there. There is a sun temple nearby, and you've got sulfur pretty much on site. So there is that. But otherwise, it's not really my favorite among the contenders, and it's certainly not a strong contender for really high comfort in the Kindle Waste itself. And that's going to bring us up to East Lapis. Now, East Lapis has a large number of buildings and a good range of comfort. It also has the highest comfort in the area that we have available to us right now in early access. Now where I'm standing is actually Ocean's Heart. This is a scavenger base that is just connected to East Lapis. If you clear out the matron and the bugs and whatnot from this area, you can get a 27 comfort there. But heading into East Lapis itself, in this southwestmost corner, there's a range of comfort from 25 anywhere up to 32, which is pretty solid. Like the crane right there that you see in front of me there, that south crane, is on top of a 32 comfort building. The best comfort that you can find in the game we have access to right now, baked into a building, is a 35, and that's going to be in the northwest corner of East Lapis, right next to this respawn orb. It's this building that I'm landing on right now. You will have to do a lot of fighting in East Lapis. I'm not kidding you. There's scavengers, there's shroud beetles, exploding shroud beetles, it's flying shroud beetles, it's, a lot of combat to sort of clear out the area. But once you settle in and expand your base, it shouldn't be much of an issue. Here's a shot from the northeast of East Lapis, looking out across all the buildings that are in the west. The best building is all the way on the right in this view. You can get some good comfort in the northeast area here. This building that I'm on top of right now has a 28 comfort down inside. Now, even though East Lapis is kind of in the northeast corner of the playable area that we have access to, it has so many mineable resources nearby that, it makes it a really great location for hauling up all of those sort of endgame materials. It's got lapis lazuli, of course. That's what the city is named after. It has tin, sulfur, really close by, and this cave passage just down to the south has a bunch of iron, barely in the shroud. You can, just mine this whole area out and, profits, right? Okay, let's talk about Low Meadows. Low Meadows is one of the early zones that you run into pretty much around shortly after Springlands. It's where you're going to rescue the Carpenter and, maybe get one of your Eternal spells from. The thing about Low Meadows is it feels like a really small zone. You've got the Pillars of Creation hemming you in on the northeast. You've got Deadly Shroud to the east of you, Shroud all to the north of you, Shroud to the west of you. There's one tiny little house southwest of here called Morwena. That's that little tiny village right there. There's an inn there, but it's only got a comfort of 12. So not really stellar, even in terms of starting zones. In fact, this location is just east of your starting location. So, maybe a good early on forward base and stuff like that. I don't know that you necessarily would feel like making it your forever base. There's not a lot of resources around Morwena. I couldn't find any flint. There may be some salt in the shroud, but even the shroud that's right next to Morwena, you have to have leveled up your flame strength to be able to enter. And even when you've done that, most of the area around you is covered with Shroud River, which means you can't walk on it anyway without dying. So not a lot of resources, a lot of death. I did have a couple honorable mentions. I wanted to mention Fort Kelvin, which is southwest of Thornhold. It's in that Revelwood region, and while it did not have any buildings with a comfort higher than 10, the highest I could find was 9. It does have a good location because it's close to some mines. You've got some VUCA there. You've got, a couple buildings with chests that you can pull out. And, and it's kind of a fort that you can expand and build on if you want to. But it just didn't have enough comfort to make the cut. The other honorable mention I wanted to give was the Sun Simmer Suderon. This is sort of a, Star Wars Episode 4 location, right? You've got your living area down below where Aunt Veru and Uncle Owen are hanging out, and you've got tons of things that you can loot down in here, including, right here we got some grapple plant and we've got some saffron, and these gardens are on either side. So wherever you put your flame altar, you'll know that you can still get plants from the other side, and it's got a well in the middle. It's got lots of internal locations for you to, check out and inhabit. So it's kind of cool. It only comes in at the highest I could get out of it would be like an 8 default. But as far as an interesting sort of base or a farm to be able to pop to, it's not bad. Obviously, being inside the Kindle Waste, you've got lots of fossilized bone. There's sulfur nearby. You've got a twig hut right behind you there. If you take your pick, you can just get lots of... It's got lots of character and lots of resources nearby. You'll find the Sunsummer Sudaran. It actually has an icon on the map. It's just on the border between the Nomad Highlands and the Kindle Waste, on the Kindle Waste side. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Which location do you like the best? Is there a location that didn't make the cut that you think should deserve an honorable mention? Or did you find a location that I actually didn't get on the list? Because I'd like to know that too. I want to thank you again for your time and your support. Don't forget to tap that like button down below to let me know you like the video. There's a monkey down there in the corner if you haven't subscribed yet. And I'll see you next time. Take care.